Well, hi. I got a small but select group, so I should probably kick off. For those of you who I don't know, my name's Paul. For everybody else, hey, again. Purpose of this evening was to run through our back to school checklist. Fundamentally, what happens quite frequently at this time of year is school comes back. We have obviously a lot of new players in the program. It's always just nice to be crystal clear about expectations or answer any questions. As always, no such thing as a silly question. So, and I'm sure we'll get a few latecomers as well. So feel free to interrupt at any stages, which will be very informal. I suspect most of the guys in the program who are new, I have probably met with face to face already. So again, feel free to interrupt at any point. Where are we? Okay, hello. Just about to kick off, so you have absolutely missed absolutely nothing. Anyway, again, good evening. I'm Paul. For those of you who haven't met, that's just a quick outline of what we're going through. This evening, on the whole, what we find is I'm particularly guilty. I've been running juniors programs in the US for the last 15 years. And as well, though Squash Tigers in New Jersey is relatively new, this is, I guess, 2.5 years in. So a bundle of our clients, a bundle of our players and parents have been doing this for a while. So we start to assume some things. So I always like to run, I wouldn't say frequent, but we like to run enough explanation sessions so that no one feels left behind. And this is one of those. So again, I'll go relatively quick. Oops. So as I was saying, I'll go through this relatively quickly. Please, at any time, it's just meant to be for a little bit of enjoyment. So don't stand on convention. There's no such thing as either a silly question or interrupting me. And like all the other squash coaches you've met, I love the sound of my own voice. So if I bore you to death, I'll try and keep it relatively brief. Yeah. Anyway, so that's the outline. We'll go through piece by piece by piece. What I have done in summer so far is met, I think at last count, 32 different families. So either mum or dad, or mum with their kids or dad with their kids. In terms of planning the season, by no means, sorry, I'll let people in. So by no means is it particularly crucial to meet one-on-one with me, but it is, and certainly you are very welcome to do so. What do we do in those one-on-one meetings? Well, what we do in those one-on-one meetings is go through training and competition. So the answer is frequently, with everybody, the answer is frequently, it depends. So that's why the one-on-one things are useful. So the thing is,
so you have the quick ones, right?
not is my hello. Is that?
You mad him. He done real amazing.
I suspect. Was that a question or?
I don't think he's saying anything interesting.
That's a very fair point. I get told that a lot. I'm glad I recorded that. Where are we? Where were we anyway? Training advice about how many squads and whatever else. Obviously, I have an experience base of hundreds of kids, whereas you just have yours. So what's a great example is it's very useful to attend. Your ambitious silver gold player might train 4 days a week, whereas I suspect they think every JCT player trains 7 days a week. So the answer is we would always like to see the children more than 3 times a week on a squash court if they're going to improve, and never ever train 7. Now there are lots of bits and pieces in between those two, but just in terms of getting recommendations that are specific to your child. I've got slots aside for the next 2 weeks. So if at the end of this, I provoke more questions than I give answers, feel free to just give me a quick email and we'll make time to actually sit down and go over some specific answers for your little one. Or maybe this evening you can ask them if it's a more generalized one. We go again relatively quickly. The schedule is already up. So spoiler alert, it's the same as last season. Now that's not strictly true, but it pretty much is. We have, and to those of you who know me well, the standard cliche that the children have everything in life apart from flexibility of schedule. So that's why we offer pretty much the ultimate in flexibility. So if you pick a Tuesday as a great example, if you're a squad member, you could bring your child along at 4, at 6, or at 8. And that could vary each week. So this week you might have come Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Next week you might have come Thursday, Friday, Saturday, as a silly example, but nonetheless an accurate example. That flexibility again goes just accepting that as the academic year gets on, that things are just darn busy. Now the guarantee is always that if your child is by far and away the best one there, then a coach will jump on court and hopefully give them some hard work. And if your little one is potentially the least experienced or a little left out, a coach will be in that bottom court then. We're fortunate, 4 full-time staff, and me if I count, but 4 full-time staff, 7 courts, and a bundle of players. So normally matchups aren't that much of an issue, but it's always just a question for the newbies. Thanksgiving and winter camp dates are out. Frequently, one of the ways that we make sure the children have, I guess, consistent training capacity is through those. And I know some families very relaxed, and others have planned, every moment up until the end of next year. So they're out in the email that you had. There'll be links to those. One of our new initiatives is our under 11 training. We had a little bit of feedback from some of the parents of our 7, 8, 9, 10-year-olds that maybe it would be nice to just put aside a couple of hours of a week where their children could come along and maybe get a little bit more specialized work. I guess there's 2 aspects to that. Firstly, I stand by our general squads. We've had, I should have that number off the top of my head, 6, maybe 7 kids in the top 40 in the country in the under 11s, boys and girls, last season. So our normal squads work perfectly well. And when I say perfectly well, I mean perfectly well. Excuse me, my cleaner's just, well, not my cleaner, the squad club cleaner's just come in. So I just need to close the door. Give me one moment. Now, when I say that, even like this, we have diligent cleaners cleaning up from our camp day outside. So I don't think we need the vacuum cleaner noise. Sorry, back to the subject. So twice a week for our under 11s, Tuesdays and Fridays at 7:15. Some activities from our coaches, which are specific to those little ones. As I said, we had a bundle of kids at the top of the under 11s in the country last year. So our squad program is proven to be more than enough for, close enough for government work, so to speak. So definitely it works. But this was just an added accoutrement. So don't feel, if you can't bring your little one to it, don't feel they've missed out. They haven't. It's just a little bonus thing to put on. I also have a variety of questions from people about the performance program. The simple answer is, even if your 12-year-old plays another 12-year-old in an uncoached environment, they'll get better every day, every week, every month. They'll get better. So they'll go that way regardless. Now, the point of the program, my program, the squash program generally, is to increase the rate of that improvement. Well, that goes doubly for the performance program. A little bit more serious, a little bit more high level, and a little bit of a way of pushing, hopefully in a really fun way, but pushing a little bit harder. And that also then takes, for instance, when kids come in, that training minutes up from 75-minute squad on a weekday through to the full 2 hours with that added performance on the end. What I generally say to almost all parents is, when in doubt, don't. It's one of those things that your child should be quite ambitious. Doesn't mean they have to be already playing JCTs. And that's why I wrote in the presentation, just because you're serious doesn't mean you're good. And just because you're good doesn't mean you're serious. So it's for the ambitious ones that would like a little bit more of a pushing. That, I think, is self-evident. Jumping along, one of the things I like to point out to families who are already playing, we run some really good work bringing people into the sport. Now, no one ever just stumbles upon squash. No one walks down the street suddenly and has an epiphany that they should Google squash. Almost everybody comes in from referral. It's not just a way, it's the way that people find the sport. So we have a nice little system come in. We've had a lot of success in the 2.5 years of opening, of making a nice little pathway between the little one coming in, us providing equipment, us helping them through, and then eventually them just being able to join in squads. Those 5 introductory lessons aren't so much lessons in a conventional fashion, in the same way that maybe an established player would have a lesson. They're 5 lessons designed to equip little ones to be able to train. Where do I sit? What's a drop? What's a lob? What's a drive? What's a boast? Maybe even a lesson on my funny accent, who knows? But it's all designed just to help on the entry level part. And as I said, no one stumbles into the sport. So it's always nice to find that people who've already got children who love it might like a pathway to pass on to their buddies who have families that might also enjoy the sport. The big ticket items, and I'm not really sure they are big ticket, but it was a nice graphic, so we'll go with this. Lesson options added this season. Normally we've done 30-minute lessons historically. Certainly I predominantly, even with some of the number one in the countries, so the big dog under 17s, I find 30 minutes suits my coaching style well. Certainly some of my colleagues, Claire, Colin, thought it would be nice to add that 45-minute option. Also, we've added staff. I think most of you have already met Ebony, who I'll talk about in a moment. So we have a little bit more staff control, and we have in terms of capacity, and we have added 30 45-minute options. We also just lowered rates randomly, which is just damn expensive. So a couple of parents pointed that out to me last year. It took me a while to move things around, but I did. To Coach Ebony. So our new addition to staff, Coach Ebony, is, gosh bless her, not only an expert squash coach, but also has a master's in sports psychology. And that's darn helpful. So what we've been trying to do is to point out to people who are very happy to, I guess, prioritize that sports psych component. There is just a free initial consultation with her if you'd like, and that may be all it would take to add a little bit of value. Sometimes it's not the case of, certainly there's no life-changing things, but some interesting concepts. Certainly for some of the more mature players, they would benefit from a sports psych session the way they benefit from a squash lesson on course. But that's certainly one of the things I was thrilled to get on board, and certainly having a trained sports psychologist, I should say a trained mental performance consultant, tomato, on staff is just a big bonus for us. And the third of those big ticket items, again, nice graphic, but rehearsal tournaments. So for those of you who are new, we hold a monthly in-house tournament. Now we have an event in September on the 7th here. October will be in our Philadelphia club and back and forth. The entry is, I don't remember off the top of my head, it's certainly free for 9-month members. It is relatively inexpensive to anybody. We have players who are not just in the Tigers program, but external to it. I'm excited with the idea of having the Philly club integrated in our rehearsal tournaments. The children get an opportunity to do, not certainly the club, it's a darn attractive club, but also the Plainsboro crew gets to see a new lot of players and possibly a bit of a reinvigorated swing. We obviously have our own coaching staff there as well, so it's just going to be a nice little rev up. I mean, historically, our rehearsal tournaments have been very useful for everyone from, as I said, the number one in the country right through to the little ones just beginning to play. So for the little ones, we obviously have coaches there to assist them to learn to mark and referee and those sorts of things. So it's a nice entry level. And for the experienced ones, they get to chase after each other. And if they're good enough, then they get to go through and play the coaches without having to worry about ranking points. Because of course, when you're in JCT's top 4, top 8 in the country, maybe you're worried about exposures. So you'd still like to get some match practice with refereed matches and serious things, but without having to endanger that profile. And interrupt me if I either waffle or if I didn't explain something properly, please. Details. Where have we got? We did tournament coaching, both in person and Zoom. Certainly for tournaments, you can expect to see squash Tiger coaches at every JCT, at every national championship. So gold, silver, bronze, US Junior Open, not all golds, but certainly several of the golds. And silvers with the geographically relevant to both places. For those tournaments who are, well, either lowly attended or just in gosh difficult places, what we've been doing is offering Zoom coaching for a period of time. So I've spent many a weekend watching my favorite players on my phone and getting possibly worse eyesight from it, but that's one of the services we provide. What else are we registering requests? I was specifically asked by Jamie in that fetching picture to the left, just to point out, if your child has a broken string and would like it repaired, please don't keep it in the bag until the very last moment and then look at Jamie pleadingly, or it's not just Jamie, it's Jamie and Claire and the other coaches as well. If there's an accident, we're always happy to work with you because we're on your side, but generally 48 hours is a pretty good idea if you've got any any concept that you'd like something done. I mean, we've got a JCT this weekend, first one of the season, and I don't really need to have, you know, the coaches up until all hours on the Friday night. That would be great. So what do we get? We've got that final part of that. Amusingly enough, some people don't know that we're on social media. When I say amusingly enough, we have our share of people who live on our pages, and we have our share of people that have never noticed. And that's fine. For the Facebookers amongst you, I think there's a link in the email I sent out to everybody today. Same with Instagram and YouTube, whatever else. Now, in no way is that particularly crucial, but what you find for the vacuum cleaner outside, just so you know, what you find is in our club, most of the parents, by the way, you're very welcome to stay, but most of the parents drop and roll, as we generally call it. So after you're established that the child's inside and happy, safe training, they then leave. So sometimes maybe you don't get quite a picture of what happens. So in a very informal way, you're not particularly stalking any children in particular, but you just get a little bit of a vibe for the hard work of the coaches and what the kids do. It's also a little bit of a fun way to just keep informed. You know, certainly I email everybody on a weekly basis, but it's just nice to know what's happening. What do they say? A picture paints 1,000 words. I don't know who said that, but whoever it was, they didn't have Instagram, so imagine what they're saying. Where are we? The end of now graphic, the little guy with arrow. The quick reminders, coach parent meetings. I'll happily talk to anybody anytime, whether in the program or not, and pretty much anytime, but I've put aside time in the next 2 weeks for that. So if you're trying to make my life easier and you know would like to chat about the season, whether that be training or competition, now would be a great time for that. The in-season sign-ups, 9-month option is open for the first week of September. That's not the end of the world. It's just I make a wonderful squash coach and I make a very average administrator. So we just generally try and get, pick a lane and go from there. Rehearsal tournaments reborn. I can't tell you how excited a lot of the kids are, and certainly the coaches, with the idea of September here, October there, November back and forth. Certainly for my New Jersey crew, you're going to love Philly. It's a very, very nice club, very, very welcoming coaches, a really nice environment. It does have the downside, two downsides. One, it's in Philly, and two, Philly's not that close. So I won't be upset if anyone decides they don't want to make the journey. But hey, well, I should also say back on number 2, if you are a 9-month member, you do get access to the other club. That was one of the big points that many people came to me with. And so the other club runs the same curriculum, same timings, same schedule, same everything. Well, it will when it opens, excuse me, later on this month. However, it's certainly the coaches will express themselves and add some of their own perspective and expertise slightly differently. And again, it's 7 glass courts rather than 2. It's a little bit of a larger club. It's just a little bit of a different experience. So that could be fun. Lessons more available. Again, I won't say that was a little bit of a complaint in previous seasons, but maybe I could have done a better job of clearing up a coach and some space for that. So lessons more available than they've been. One of my final ones on last season, we had 26 kids in the top 32 of their respective divisions across US squash rankings. I always like to say to parents that doesn't really define us. So we have some recreational players as well, and that's great. I mean, some of my favorite guys never played at JCT, they played golds, and even some of my gold guys have been recruited and had great, enjoyable, worthwhile college careers afterwards. So it doesn't mean they're the only guys that we think about, but it's a good little barometer. I always say to parents that we have 25 of, say we deal with 100 families, 25 in the top 30 odd of the country, and then we have 25 who are just starting out, swing and missing, and then it's the 50 in the middle that are pivoting through, and that's good fun to watch the journey. And finally, contact me with questions. I walk around the club during squads like I'm exceedingly busy. I'm not really. It's just I like my coaching, so sometimes during the squad I'm a little inaccessible, but certainly any text or any email will always be replied to. We can either arrange to Zoom meeting. We can always arrange to sit down at the club. So no such thing as a silly question. On a dad level, my 2 kids are swimmers, which is, I wouldn't say a sore point, but it is a little bit unusual. And there's a lot in the swim world that occasionally I just don't get. So I've been fortunate, certainly my wife and I, fortunate to have found a nice club and some nice coaches. So I have been in that situation of sitting down with the coach and going, what on earth is happening? How do we enter something, or what are we doing? And so having been through it myself, I would always be very happy for someone else to come up to me and go, hey, could you give us a little bit of a hand with whatever it is, whether it's training or whether it's competition. I'm very relaxed about any of that. Also, oh yeah, that's okay. We've all done that on occasions. But as I said, always happy to talk training and competition, always happy to talk squash. I've been doing it for a million years, and happy to do it for me and more. So don't ever feel funny about asking questions. I mean, I've been there and done that with all of those. And that concludes. I think I've kept to time, which by my standards is wonderful, because as I said at the start of the presentation, every squash coach I've ever met loves the sound of their own voice, and I'm no different. So always good to keep to time. Very happy if there are any questions from anybody at this stage, or conversely, you can just drop me an email or a call afterwards, and I can answer any either personal questions or specific questions for your kids. Does anyone have anything that's particularly relevant to everybody they might like to bring up? It's always that awkward moment on Zoom, isn't it? When you go, any questions, and there's sort of a gap, and you never really know if you're intruding or so. You've got a 10-second warning to go, okay, anyone got a question? No problems. Well, I presume this evening, since you got the link to the Zoom, that also means you have my email account. So please feel free to get back to me on that. If there are any questions that arise that specifically relate to your little one, I'm very happy to answer those. Similarly, this presentation, not that it's the most scintillating, entertaining thing that's ever been, but that will go up on our YouTube channel. So if you'd like to rewatch that, so if you came either a little bit late or had to leave a little bit early, in which case you wouldn't be hearing this, but you get the idea. It will be there to check up on afterwards. So last call, any questions before we go closest? No problems. Again, thank you very much for some of your evening. Pleasure to see you all. And as I said, we will hopefully see you at the club soon. Take care.